Hello and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We are coming to you live from our studios in Kokomlemle. Our digital address GA0992539. Our top stories this hour. Restrictions eased. What next? We focus on religious bodies as they prepare to open up. But there are concerns crowding will fuel mass infections. We hear from health experts and religious groups as we also examine the best way to use your face masks now that you have to wear it in the crowd. Road carnage reduces drastically, a situation attributed to COVID-19. Well, how do we leverage the new record going forward? The National Road Safety Commission is live with us today as we engage advocates also. Join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144. Remember, we're streaming live on YouTube, and you can also find us on your digital TV free to air. Your opinions, your thoughts are welcome. 0540109009. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. Let's take you through the details of those stories now. Government's decision to ease restrictions on mass gathering has been met with mixed reactions. While some have welcomed the move, others believe the decision could have dire consequences as Ghana's COVID-19 case count crosses the 8,000 mark. In his 10th address to the nation, President Akufo-Addo said final year JHS, SHS and university students can return to school. He also announced the reopening of churches at a 25% capacity. We'll hear from the president shortly, but first, some churches in Kumasi have begun preparations to open up. Chairperson of the Kumasi Ministers Fellowship says government should set up a team to inspect churches and other religious installations on their ability to accommodate and observe the protocols before allowing them to open up. Love FM's Prince Apia has been speaking to Pastor Ransford Obeng.
In the wake of numerous calls by a lot of people for ban on social gathering to be lifted, which means that churches and other religious installations will also be open, there are a lot of calls for strict measures in the churches to ensure people don't contract the disease in these places of worship. So here at CCC, authorities have put in stringent measures.
And I am saying yes, because we are fully prepared. We have done the 6 feet distance. And so because of that, even though our church at a sitting, we could pack up to 3,000. But now, because of the distancing, we will be able to take only 400 for a service. And so because of that, we are doing 6 services. We will do 2 services on Saturday and 4 services on Sunday, so that we will not be crowded to observe all the protocols. So we have informed all our group leaders to inform their members for us to know which service they want to come, so that we will know which service is going to be crowded, and then we can discourage people from coming to that service.
Already, thermometer guns, sanitizer installations, Veronica buckets and other sanitary items have been provided. Those without face masks will be given some in addition to other protocols. There are numbers on every seat. Any person that enters the church will write the name, fill a form, and ensure that in any case, that would help with contact tracing in the wake of any person contracting the disease.
Even when we didn't have the coronavirus, every time people come to church, they fill a form. And so every form that will be filled will determine the seat number you sat on. In case something happened, we'll be able to know the time he came, the service he came, where he sat, people that were around him, so that it makes it easy for contact tracing and the rest.
For him, the churches in particular should be given some 2 weeks for authorities to ensure that indeed they are ready to accommodate people before they are opened up.
And my recommendation to the president is that the reopening of churches should be gradual. you should give them at least certain time, about 2 weeks, and let monetary team go to all the churches that are prepared. If they are finished, they should tell them where they should go. They will go and inspect and look at what they have put in place. If they meet the criteria, they give them permission to start worshiping. I believe that the same way that we are putting in place all the physical remedies, everything, the same way we should also pray and ask God to give our scientists the wisdom and knowledge to come out with a vaccine. So we must fight it, both physical and spiritual.
So until the ban on social gathering is lifted, the churches and other institutions will continue to prepare. My name is Prince Apia reporting from Kumasi.
Well, looks like a preparation met opportunity. This report was filed prior to President Akufo-Addo's announcement. We can now listen to the president lifting the partial restrictions on churches and mosques.
Fellow Ghanaians, with effect from Friday, 5th June, we will begin stage 1 of the process of easing restrictions. An abridged format for religious services can commence. 25% attendance, with a maximum number of 100 congregants, can worship at a time in church or at the mosque, with a mandatory 1 meter rule of social distancing between congregants. In addition to the mandatory wearing of masks for all persons at all times in churches and mosques, a register of names and contact details of all worshippers and hand-washing facilities and sanitizers must be provided, with a maximum duration of 1 hour for each service. Religious institutions that are desirous of opening their premises to their members, such as churches, mosques, and others, must disinfect, fumigate, and put in place the requisite logistics needed to guarantee safe opening and operationing. They must work with the designated regulatory bodies and undertake test runs of the protocols I have outlined. I would appeal to them, in the case of Christians, on the first Sunday of reopening, i.e. 7th June, in the case of the Adventists, Saturday, 6th June, and in the case of Muslims, on the first Friday, i.e. Salat al-Jum'ah, on 5th June, to dedicate their worship to prayers for the nation in these challenging times. The Minister for Religious Affairs will tomorrow, Monday, 1st June, outline in detail the specific guidelines for the safe reopening of our churches and mosques.
President Akufo-Addo there yesterday. So we hit the streets to find out from ordinary Ghanaians what they make of the decision to ease the restrictions. Here's what they think.
Because here's a few crown. So for Chief Cardinal Patrick Braxton, or may I saw online. Nina Eska by Sabaya, your baby umpire see arena no quaintino, or two watch I say a bear sadiano. And to me, I be no say more and never any purpose 100 and a the buy bet me 1 hour, bet me a bumpire and your meaty. Maybe 5 minutes for a bumpire and your meeting, it's a bumpire and maybe. Okay.
Well, essentially, she's excited about the president easing the restrictions. She says that even if 5 minutes they would have to pray in the church, they would be able to do that. And she says she's excited that they have 1 hour to be able to, to pray. But let me find out from her. I saw, social distancing near the idea president car, masks near the idea, say motion mask. I dare tell you more. So we shall bet me.
Because we bet me. Because say an anti-abonting, I be sent me cook me, Mr. Max. Me quote idea in a make a suffer max in him. Until you bet me, I answer, I'm an aye. Because I bet you a baby be a bit me as a max no sanitizer and so you bet me, I use you, I'm an me, aye, yes, a baby who binds.
Okay. Well, I was just asking her whether the church will be able to stick to the protocol out there, whether the choristers will be able to wear their mask to sing and all of that. She says, I mean, she's in town and she's still wearing a mask, so she doesn't have any problem entering the church with a mask. And she thinks that the churches will be able to adhere to all the protocol, provide hand sanitizers, wear the masks, adhere to social distancing and all. So which church do you attend?
I attend Mighty Chapel.
Mighty Chapel?
Yeah,
okay. How many are you? Your church, what's the size of it?
It could be like, say, 1,000 or so.
1,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me, a church with a population size of, 1,000, do you think you'll be able to adhere to the protocol?
Because I'm thinking, so if, my problem is if the president said 100 people should attend the church for 1 hour or so, 1 hour. So, okay, I think it's good. So 1 hour, then another person, another group of people will enter for another 1 hour. Yeah. Okay. So I think it's okay. But what I'm thinking is the place will be crowded. Outside the church premises will be crowded. That's my problem.
Okay. The president has eased the restrictions. Are you going to church this Sunday?
Surely I will go to church.
You go to church? Okay. What will change when you're going to church?
Because I have to, my nose mask and this thing, I'm supposed to wear washing hands and those things. I'm supposed to make sure that everything is there. If that thing is not there, maybe I cannot enter the church room. They have to go back.
Well, while most churches look forward to congregating after over several weeks of remote fellowships, implementing the new directives in the Muslim community presents a huge challenge, according to spokesperson of the Chief Imam, Sheikh Karim Shaibu. He told me earlier this morning that he foresees a huge challenge for the Muslim community.
I had suggested earlier on, and I want to put it here again, we intend to encourage the formation of COVID-19 prevention committees at the mosque levels.
Okay.
And that could be at the national, regional, district, community and neighborhood mosques, where these things, in most of the neighborhood mosques, the limit set can apply because the number may not reach 100,
okay,
because it is within a neighborhood. So then the protocols is what we need to uphold. For example, you want to see the entrance point, what the sanitizers have to pick, or Veronica bucket set over there. I'm even thinking that we should even now begin to use the temperature gun to ensure that the temperatures are, determined before one enters. We are also thinking about, my slogan is, one man, one prayer rag.
Okay.
One man, one prayer rag or prayer mat.
Hasn't that always been the case?
No.
People share mats?
Optional, but we have a permanently laid mats in the mosque all the time.
Right.
But there are those who can afford, and so they come with their own certain designed kind of prayer mats which they spread. But this time it should be mandatory that everyone comes with his own personal mat. Okay. I'm thinking about our ablution bay. Instead of using water cans, we are asking that everyone, one, perform ablution at home, or you come with your own personal water can, which you use for your ablution, or we use taps which also must be repeatedly be disinfected at any time one uses it. Then we really have to do that. We are likely to face problems with the major mosques. Okay. And that's where we talk about the difficulty with the partial lifting.
Give us some of the major mosques you are referring to, and what problems.
If you take Accra, we have certain mosques, we call them a regional central mosque, or central mosque within the regions. For example, if you go to Tamale, the main Zamio Mosque, for example, is the major mosque, which attracts huge congregations. If you go to Kumasi, for example, the regional mosque, for example, we call it the regional mosque. In the whole, that's the central. If you come to Accra here, where the Chief Imam worships, for example, Abosokai, is the central. Yeah. And it's a whole community surrounding it, so it attracts huge congregation. Yeah. Yeah. And because our form of prayer is time-bound and is fixed, it doesn't change. Then you have a difficulty even saying that you're going to have session by session prayer because the time is fixed. Right. And that sort of thing. Right. And secondly, our culture and tradition of worship is different. So, for example, if Chief Imam comes to Abosokai, you might have it's Herculean, to say, okay, only 100 people are entering, all of you now turn away and go back, or you are waiting. So I had mentioned that earlier on for caution.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that the details will have to be designed by the Minister of Religious Affairs. What it means is that I expect the minister to invite inputs as to how we can effectively do this. Other than that, implementation at our level could create some difficulties, and that's why we said, for us, government should do a proper assessment of the risk. If it's proper to lift it completely, then let's lift it, and then we now observe the protocols. But the partial one can create some difficulties.
Sheikh Arimi Al-Shaibu talking to me earlier this morning. Well, on the same show, Chairman of the Christian Council of Ghana, Most Reverend Dr. Paul Kwabena-Boafo, is also urging churches across the country not to rush into congregating if they genuinely believe the church is not ready. He also wants the law to deal with recalcitrant church leaders.
We think that it's a good start, because the president said we are having it in phases. And so for 100, though in some of the congregations, 25% will be more than that. And those who have more spaces, 25% and 100 maximum will be a small figure. But I think we can start with that, observing the social distancing and making sure that all the protocols are also observed. And then if we are looking at how now we want to come in with the registration, writing of names, and then sanitizing and all that, I think that the 100 will be a manageable number for the start. But we'll be appealing to our members to observe the protocols. The protocols that we ourselves put together and sent to the government, we will have to follow. Those who will not follow, but will want to do things contrary to what we have put forward and what has been given to us as way of preventing, then the law will deal with them. That one, we have said it several times that, see, some of the things that some men of God infringe upon are against human rights. And the laws are there for all of us. They should be arrested. We should not fear that when we do these things, God will be against us. God wants order. We all need to prepare. The preparation from now to Friday or to Sunday should be very intensive, in the sense that if we are not ready for even the coming Sunday, we should say that no, we'll wait until the following Sunday, which will go a long way for all of us. And we should also know that as churches and mosques, we play a major role. We are major stakeholders. We can help in making these restrictions work.
Chairperson of the Christian Council there will be having a conversation with religious leaders as well. But in the meantime, some public health experts are concerned. They're concerned that crowding is almost inevitable and that it may lead to mass infections. Head of the Department of Community Health at the University of Ghana Medical School, Professor Alfred Yolson, and virologist with the KCCR, Dr. Augustina Silverkin, are warning that crowding could lead to mass infection. And that situation is not that situation may not be, Ghana's health system may not be able to contain.
We can foresee huge challenges in the circumstance and the way we are going. And especially just giving 1 week for all this to happen, especially for the churches and the mosques. How much preparations have gone in there, and as we are saying, our critical fear is the crowding, and that is where the challenge is. 100 people come in, how to manage it is really a test case that is going to be for us. And how do we manage it, especially when for close to 2 months we've been struggling as a nation to even insist on people wearing face masks. That is our fear, and that is our challenge in the days ahead, because it's something that we should all be mindful of. If the cases are rising and rising gradually, the system can contain it. But if we create the scenario where there will be mass infections and the numbers exponentially increase, then it becomes challenging. We are hoping we won't get there, and we are expecting that stakeholders, in this case, community leaders, church leaders, we will demand full accountability and responsibility from these persons, as well as the state organizations whose responsibility it is to enforce this. It is always going to be uncomfortable for some groups and for some people, but we need to do so that we protect each other and we are there for all of us. Otherwise, we are going to have challenges going forward.
But Prof, you paint a very gloomy picture, but that's the reality. The reality is, as a public health expert, you are concerned. I have the leaders here with me. I mean, some of the leaders here with me, the Christian Council. I have the spokesperson for the Chief Imam as well here. From a public health perspective, what advice can you give them in terms of implementing this ease of restrictions, if you like, at least having 100 people? What can they do to minimize, to the barest minimum, any potential of infection, should there be?
Yes, I think both Most Reverend and Sheikh have illustrated some of the actions they want to take. And critical among this will be the engagement of their congregants. Community engagement will be key for people to understand that we are doing this for all of us, and that some people may not have the opportunity, as being suggested, to come to the mosque or to the church. But that is not like preventing you from worshiping, but it is to protect you and protect others. So I think the most important will be the engagement of this, not trying to enforce strictly, because as Sheikh said, religious matters go to the very core and the heart of people's behavior, and people may tend to be violent, may tend to resist, and then create scenes that you wouldn't want to. So I think the engagement and probably setting up committees, small committees here and there to engage these people. The leaders alone cannot do that. And then soliciting the support of the media and persons in positions to also continue to engage the members of churches, members of mosques. It is the way we can go along it, because strictly enforcing and using brutal force will not work in this case. You need to appeal to people's conscience for people to understand that, yes, your health is your personal responsibility. However, you have responsibility to protect others as well. And when people understand this with the leaders that they trust so much, we believe we can make headway in this regard. So the engagement will be key in this.
Okay. I'm going to wrap up with final comments from each of you. But before I do that, Prof. Yosin, I also still want to engage you on this briefly. Are there any expectations of the ability? Okay, let me put it this way. Our health system, so far we have been told that our health system has been able to function properly because we are not waiting till people are critically ill before we go, because we are doing testing. But do you think that our health system at the moment will be able to suck in any mass infection, as you indicated? And how can we deal with that whilst we prepare to open up? How can we deal with the expectation that there could be a level of mass infection?
The health system, we will say, currently is coping. We would say we are very comfortable. Health workers who are involved, who are in the front line, are stretched. But as per our training, we cope under whatever circumstances. But there is a limit to how much people can cope and how much the system can cope for how long they can. We should also be mindful that we shouldn't concentrate only on the numbers of deaths resulting from COVID. If we do that, we are being unfair and unjust to ourselves. We need really to look at whether non-COVID related deaths are not increasing. Because if we concentrate and people with diabetes, people with hypertension who would otherwise have had optimum care come to the hospital, and because of COVID, we neglect them or we are unable to give them the optimum care, these people may end up dying. And these are all Ghanaians. Any death is death. It's not only COVID death that we should be worried about.
Look into the health-seeking behavior of our people, because we don't even know whether people are hiding in their rooms, especially because in Ghana we've realized that 91% of those who tested positive are actually asymptomatic. And we know that there's the DIMS, the District Health Information Management System. So there's this database. We may want to be looking into it to ensure that in terms of pneumonia, high respiratory related infections, people are actually not reporting to our hospitals. I think we always need to be keeping checks and balances on these things, i.e. the health-seeking behavior of people, as well as our health information system. Like a professor said, we don't want our health systems to be overwhelmed, but I think that already our health systems should go into the active mode, because we don't know what will happen today, we don't know what will happen tomorrow.
Right.
In terms of the discussion we've had, I think we should all be very, very careful. So the president indicated that if you think, for example, your church is not ready to open up, I think it becomes very important that you still adhere to the remote participation, because if your church is such that you have a lot of so-called vulnerable congregants, then I think as a leader, you should definitely advise your people that, look, this is for your own good. And even if you want to still go ahead and open up your churches, I think you should lead by example.
Yeah.
Because as a leader, you should learn how to wear the nose mask very well and how to remove the nose mask as well. Okay. If we want to register our congregants and somebody sits in front of you, will the person, for example, remove the nose mask and speak to you? Or I think a lot of things we may have to put in place to ensure that at least we are limiting the spread of the virus. Remember that we may not be able to halt the transmission of this virus, but we can only through some simple mitigation measures limit its spread so that at least our R0 will go below 1.
So hopefully this gives you an idea of the bigger picture of what the situation really is and how we can go ahead to implement this. I'm joined via Zoom by Dr. Bernard Taylor. He's Senior Pastor, Destiny Empowerment Chapel International. He's decided not to resume church services, even though the restrictions have been lifted. And as you heard the Christian Council say, churches should not rush into congregating if they are genuinely not ready. Sir, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Why have you decided not to open up your church this Sunday?
I believe beyond a reasonable doubt that there is always a human responsibility that comes in partnership with God. And globally, we look at what is going on. We Africans, I think mostly we have the proclivity to downplay wisdom with spirituality. And to be very, to take precaution. Church will always be there. The church building has not departed. It's going to be there for ages. We were born into church. We came to meet church, and church will be there for us. So I want all Ghanaians to understand that this pandemic is more serious than we think. I'm speaking to you in Atlanta, Georgia. I see the news around the world, and in Ghana, some folks are taking things for granted. This is more serious than we think. So let's all take precautions. When you look at Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 15 to 20, the Bible says, I have set before you life and death. That's a human responsibility. Choose life, right? God reiterated in verse 19 of Deuteronomy 30. He says that this day I call heaven and the earth as witness against you that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curses. Now choose life so that you and your children may live. So this is just wisdom. Let's take our time. Let's read the system. Let's study how we're going to make things right. And at the end of the day, we'll all have victory. People that we meet and encounter, I stated in my press release that there are many people that comes to our churches from varied and variegated backgrounds. We never can tell what someone picked up on the road. And we cannot compromise the life of our little ones. And somebody who is so innocent will come in contact with a virus and we destroy destinies. So to me as a pastor, this is my perspective. I want our church and our members to take their time. We want to read all that we need to read, study the system. We want to take precautions. And at the right time, by the special grace of God, we'll all gather back in church.
If, for lack of a better expression, that you're getting in Atlanta, because of course in the United States the situation is more dire than it is here in Ghana. Globally,
it's not only in America, globally.
But if you want to compare what's happening in the United States, the number of deaths, and you want to compare that to Ghana, the United States of America is way ahead in terms of how difficult the situation is. That many more people are dying, and so I was just wondering if that is informing your decision.
Not at all. You and I bear witness that even when the president placed the restrictions that we should be quarantined, you saw the number of people on the streets. Up to today, the average Ghanaian doesn't even believe that coronavirus exists. You know better than I do. People are more ignorant than being enlightened about the death ratio that is going on globally. We have only one life to live. We can't play chess with our lives. We have to take precaution. Ghanaians must be informed about this coronavirus. We have to be careful. This thing is more lethal, horrific than we think, and we can't use religiosity over wisdom. This is common sense, and this is wisdom. We need to choose life.
Does that seek to suggest that those who are choosing to open up are not exhibiting wisdom? They're not choosing life, you think?
I'm speaking from my perspective, ma'am. Yeah. There's nothing wrong in opening the church, but I think our church is not ready. And also, I believe beyond every reasonable doubt that the nation is not ready.
The nation is not ready. I'll just bring in Pastor Ransford Obeng, who is the chairperson of the Kumasi Ministers Fellowship, also joining us in this conversation. Pastor Ransford, thank you for your time this afternoon. Your church actually started preparations already ahead of the announcement of the ease in restrictions. Did you see this coming?
Yes. No. What happened is that, if you are in anticipation for something, even the Bible tells us that you need to prepare ahead of time. That is why I felt it was very important as a leader of a movement. I needed to prepare and let my people instruct them how to prepare for the reopening.
So you indeed prepared, and it's been lifted. I'm speaking to also another man of God, Bernard Taylor, who says that from his perspective, first of all, his church is not ready, but he genuinely thinks that this country is not ready for mass congregations.
I don't think we can generalize it like that. It's like you have restaurants. There are some restaurants that can comply to the rules. There are some restaurants that will not comply to the rules. So because of that, should you shut all restaurants? No. Yes, some may not be prepared. Their even environment and the place where they meet may not be conducive. But that does not mean that every church is not prepared.
Right. So you see the numbers go up. I think that's where the perspective that people come from. The numbers have gone up. We're above 8,000 at the moment. 36 people have died. And although the rate of mortality is not as rapid as it is elsewhere, we have seen the steady growth of the number of people who have died from 1 up until 36. Does that not give you the impression that perhaps even though the restrictions have been eased, perhaps we should stagger the implementation a little?
I personally believe that the church is a safer place most churches that are prepared, it's a safer place than going to the market, even than going to our banks. Because I've seen what happens in the streets. I've seen what happens at the working place. I've gone to banks and I've seen what happens there. With my preparation that I've made, it is far, far better than the market, than the bank, and even whatever you may compare. It is far, far safer.
Reverend Taylor, let me bring you into this conversation. What's your own perspective to this, that the churches are safer because banks are working anyway? Some hotels even work elsewhere. Banks are working, markets are open. He's saying that churches are actually safer places. Indeed, some people have said that the emotional stability that it brings to people is even something that's needed in these times.
I would like to comment on the wisdom of our father, Bishop Ransford. He's a father and a general of God in the kingdom of God. And definitely I'm like a son or a grandson to him. My opinion is very subjective with respect to the kind of studies I have personally done and the experiential knowledge I have in the States and globally what is happening. Sure, the church is a safe place. I can't contend that. But my persuasion here is we have to educate our people more than just opening the church.
Yes.
Because we are pastoring people from varied backgrounds and variegated historicity. And you have no idea who is coming that has the virus that can contaminate the whole populace. Yes. So that is my subjective sentiment.
Okay. Can I come in?
Yes, Dad.
Yes. I don't dispute what you are saying, but not everybody, not every church is fully prepared. That I agree. But there are some that are fully prepared. In fact, the proposal I gave to our regional minister here and the authorities in Ashanti region, I told them that they should even give the church 2 weeks. When the president left the ban, he should give them 2 weeks to prepare. In fact, today I've conducted 3 seminars for pastors. I did 3 seminars for all pastors in Kumasi. I did one at 9 o'clock, one at 10 o'clock, and one at 11 o'clock, and educate them and show them what they are supposed to do. I did that because it's very, very important. But to say that they should not open, that one, I have a problem, because even when somebody is sick, it has been proven scientifically that even when somebody is sick and they pray for the person, his rate of recovery is better and quicker than somebody that nobody prays for. So that is why I personally believe that we should not tackle it only from the scientific part. We should also tackle it from the spiritual aspect.
Ransford, people have actually also said that if that's the situation, then we can always do it online, as we're doing at the moment, and it's working. So they say, why do we...
My view is this, and the Bible tells us, because our faith, the Bible says 1 will chase 1,000 and 2 will chase 10,000. When we meet together and pray, the power of that prayer is different from individual prayer. That is why the Bible tells us that we should not neglect the coming together. So when we don't meet together, something happens to our faith. Our faith is such that we always have to come together. It is part of our belief. So when we don't meet, something is happening to our faith.
So let me ask, before I wrap up this conversation, would you include children in this service? How will you implement it in your church? And you have 1 hour. Will children be a part of the service?
Yes. In fact, my recommendation I gave to the government, I told them that there shouldn't be children's service. I've already told my members, everybody, that there won't be children's service because children cannot observe those protocols. So I've already made it red. In fact, all the things that I told even the government that we shouldn't have a long service. Having 1 hour service, I don't have a problem. I know some of my colleagues will have a problem. But what I say to them that the Holy Spirit will work within any time you allot for him. So it calls for discipline. You see, we need to understand that church will not be as usual. So we need to come together, pray, and fight this virus, both scientifically and then spiritually. That is my stand. So we can't allow children to come to our services. And most churches even don't have good facilities for children.
So what do we do with the children? Because their parents will be going to church anyway. What happens to them?
What we advise is that if the father comes to church today, then following Sunday, the mother comes to church. And what we are doing is that we are providing a pen drive with children program that we will give it to parents, that they will educate their children and have service with them in the evening. In fact, one of the things that I am doing is that I am doing service we are doing service on Saturday. We're going to do service on Friday, we're going to do on Saturday, and then we'll do on Sunday, because we cannot do, if we want to go by Sunday, we can't go by the rules that the government has given. So we will start on Friday, have one service on Friday. On Saturday, have about 4 services on Saturday, do 2 in the morning, do 2 in the evening, and then Sunday the same thing. So we are not limited to do service. We can even start on Wednesday and be doing service every day for people to come.
Very well. Reverend Ransford, I'll come to you for your final words. But Pastor Taylor, I'll take your final words. When are you looking to open up? When do you think will be good a time to go back to church?
Well, we want to look at for the next 4 weeks just to still get ourselves acclimatized and customized with all the precautionary measures and prepare our members very well. And I believe beyond every reasonable doubt that God will grant us the grace that will sustain us. And, whatever Daddy said is completely right. He's a father in the kingdom of God, and we should all support what he said. Thank you, Daddy.
I think those who are not prepared should not rush like what you are doing. I really respect what you've done. You know, in fact, right now I'm looking for some clarity. If the clarity doesn't come, I will even shift. This weekend we will not meet. I will announce for us to meet next week, because now there's people don't know whether it is 100 or it is 25% or this. So the clarity must come. If the clarity doesn't come, I have to change my pattern of services. Yes. So we are waiting for that. I'm not in a hurry to open church. Yes.
Thank you very much. These men of God who have just joined us this afternoon. I had Bernard Taylor, Reverend Bernard Taylor. He is the founder of Destiny Empowerment Chapel. He is not opening up his church. It says his church is not ready for services at the moment. They're giving themselves at least 4 weeks to work that out. Thank you. He joined us all the way from Atlanta. Pastor Ransford Obeng is also head of the Kumasi Ministers Fellowship. He says he's looking to start next week if they realize that they're not completely ready this week. Sir, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
We'll have a conversation about how to wear your masks. Right now, we've heard that you cannot go into a church without a mask, so you always have to do that. In fact, as we speak, several organizations will not admit you into their premises without a mask. But just a quick look at some of the messages that you've been sending in concerning what the pastors are saying. I'll be joined for that conversation by Dr. Titus Bayo of the Ghana Medical Association for us to have that conversation. This one says, my church has a membership of 1,500. The choristers, instrumentalists, ushers, and prayer warriors alone are more than 100. I don't understand how this 100 people will work. Does the 100 people include children, the children in the youth church, the children of ushers, instrumentalists, and choirs? More than 200. Well, like you said, the church can always stagger the number of people that come into the church premises at any given time. Please do not call this number. This is just for WhatsApp. Gifty, seriously speaking, the president doesn't believe in his own self because he's going against his own statement by easing restrictions in a premature way. That's going to lead to innocent lives being infected. That will lead to people dying, and the president knows that he can't bring those people back to life, as he stated. So why should the president ease the restrictions on churches, mosques, etc.? Let me take the final one, and then we can go on with our conversation. This one says, church is the only safest place, and the Spirit of God is always there to heal and bless. So I disagree with anyone against the opening. God is always there to see his saints. Happy to see his saints together. Let's have the conversation on how you wear your masks as we look forward to the churches and mosques opening up. Dr. Bayo, thank you for your time this afternoon. Okay, we'll try and raise Dr. Bayo there, but do not call this line. Please stop calling the line so that I can read your messages as you're sending them. Otherwise, some messages will suffer. All right. This one is coming from Farouk that sends this message from Tamale North. Says, in fact, the easing of the restrictions by the president is just to allow the Electoral Commission and NIA to plan their Reagan strategies, but we will resist that heartless move. Thanks for sending in your message as well and for watching consistently. CCC Kumasi is the best place to be. That's Pastor Ransford's church. I believe you're a member of the church. Thank you for sending in your message. This one says, I think I agree with the pastor who spoke earlier. Some of the churches will take advantage with what the president said yesterday. But if we don't take time, the people will suppress the virus. Okay, I'm not quite sure what you're saying, but Francis sent this message. You say enemies are not good. Thank you for sending in that message as well. Okay. If you continue to call the number, it makes it difficult for me to read your messages, all right? So let's stick to just the text messages. Is 100 a maximum? This one is from Nanakweku Adei Mununkum. Says, is it 100 maximum or 25% of members at a service? So the point is, it has to be 25% of the membership, of course. But if it's below 100, well, by all means, the president's point is that it should not go beyond 100. Take a very quick break. When I return, we'll talk about road carnage. We're hearing that the statistics have reduced, a situation that's been attributed to COVID-19. How do we leverage this record going forward? I have the Road Safety Commission with me when I return. Do stay. Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, the outbreak of COVID-19 in Ghana may have brought untold hardship, pain, discomfort to a lot of people. But in the midst of the crisis, there's some good news to share. Road accidents have for long been a big problem for the country, and it appears to be easing thanks to the restrictions imposed by government on movement to halt the spread of the virus. The latest figures for the first quarter of 2020 show a significant improvement compared to the same period last year, and the National Road Safety Authority believes that the lockdown period and COVID-19 restrictions helped to achieve that success. Here are the figures. We'll put those figures to you in a bit. So, is the reduction in the road safety? So, what is really causing the reduction in these figures? We'll hear shortly from officials of the Road Safety Authority and a road safety advocate on the reasons and how we can consolidate the gains. First, though, experiences of some drivers, and Estina Barrow-Richter has been speaking to them.
When the lockdown came about, there was a drastic reduction of motor vehicles on our highways, and consequently you are not likely to have such accidents come about when not just coaches, but when a lot of vehicles are on the highway and there's congestion. When we have a single carriageway from Accra to Kumasi, a single carriageway from Kumasi to Tamale, obviously when people are trying to overtake each other with less due care, you are likely to have accidents come about. When there's a drastic reduction of such motor vehicles, you are not likely to have accidents. So it's not so much the coaches are not on the road, but it is so much other vehicles, other road users were also taken off the road.
Since the corona, aju kakra che say cars ne no so saa because on say e cars ni be free especially the never enipa 50 something ni na e free man be 31 okra say you go free man be 30 nti na makwan so in fact na makwan so aju
the see bebre o accident o kwan so ye no bebre adaba fo kan ho bebre nso ekwan no ka ho o kan no hu se kan ye mo no betuma fa kwan no so tetu bi epoku so kwan wonam ko tare so photos o waso so obobo mo ba 2 years 1 year no budget ni ma na ye mre speed ram do so de do no me ma dwene se kan pese ka Ghana panifo o mo tie mi a o ma ekwan ye kase ne ja do singing road no ne juwa carriage ye ko hatu hatre a if is bazen kro be ba be kakra bi na de Ghana aduru anyina duru ne sa bonsa ho a obi lodu free Burkina waso niema enso lodu person free ase ye ko bananta na juwa bi 48 hours 52 hours no nam obedu no ayemre ani haba sense ebi ye ko emphasize VIP number 5 ebe shata krota be 20 na make us me drive 4 hours 5 hours me duk mas trader no ba no free be Burkina lampadu no ba wa bere what I say mistake beba on mistake make my mistake on my mistake na ka happen across the border na dey boy yen ema kakase ne intention mo ntema ye ho ha ye wo akwan no so say we bedu poku traffic crash ya trader 20 ntesa first no unya kwan no bere de one hour kwan no twam ntia no de ye mpanimfo no so no mo boy de a mo mo ye say mo metete cars no so man ntia na kasa first no ka bosse secretary pon corona na baye boy baby ma nyina ne pie ntia ja ye go mo no de first no obi a me penta me say person driver watch it
because the buses are not many and even the traders are not many on the road. At times the traders are causing the accident more and now there are not many on the road, so the road is free.
This time an accident in a new home. But maybe I don't have any madam cross there. This time the car new cross be bree and here one. And a two, a binance so born home what they were going to say, baby are not and capotos who are your dodge a copimino. Nina and so Amugusa or more. Say no ye me ye binko nipa ne ma passengers na also obi asuro so ba foka entina ma ye nya passengers ne ya de akọ betima gina hanoma the whole day car na nke betu anopa be mfaze wria be 12 no e say 2 anwumre 4 passengers ne ma eno de ade da ho say no say de be road accident ne be low down say no corona time no a low down ana within corona no so no omo ye akwan no ba bia na enye no eti amaka bi o mananka okono ni boat bi nanka betimi de na koduru ba bi okoba obo amana mu nti no e ma bi a onu ba bi na boat na tu.
Beryl spoke to those drivers there, and I have here in studio a representative from the from the National Road Safety Authority. Henry Asumene is in charge of programming. I believe I got that right. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we were billed earlier to speak to Dr. Bayo of the Ghana Medical Association on the best way to wear a mask. We missed him. It looks like we have him right now. Since we're both wearing masks, it will be good to chip that in, have a quick conversation on that one, and then we can get on to talk about the statistics. All right, unfortunately, I've lost him once again. So, Ms. Asumene, it's good to have you. Thank you very much for your time. It looks like this is the first time we're having this conversation. I mean, we're meeting this year. Am I?
Yes, it does.
It looks like. Okay, and we're meeting on a good note. I'm happy to have something different to talk about because we're always talking about the same thing, people dying. But the good news is that our statistics show there is a reduction in road carnage.
Yes, that is true. The statistics shows that the number of people who have died on the road between January and April, as compared to last year, has reduced by about 23%, or almost 24%.
Okay.
Then if you look at all the parameters that we use in looking at the, when we say road safety figures, you realize that apart from the incidents with motorbikes and injuries, all the other parameters we recorded reductions. Okay. But for the incidents with motorcycles, we had an increase of almost 15%. And this brings us back to the conversation on how to tackle this motorcycle menace. Then with the injuries, we had about 0.6% increase. But apart from these two parameters, for all the other parameters that we have, we had reductions in all these.
How do we link this for sure to COVID-19? Is there any linkage, I mean, scientifically proven, I must say?
Okay, so not yet scientifically proven, but logically you realize that because of the lockdown, the vehicles on our roads were low. Now, for a period of about 2 weeks, no vehicle, I think it was 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, it was about 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks, no vehicle was traveling from Accra to the outskirts, and then also from Kumasi. And these two areas are where we have a lot of these transport hubs where they travel to and fro. So if you lock those two cities down, you realize that now the transport on our major roads will be reduced.
I see.
And I think this contributed to this reduction because now the number of vehicles on the road had gone down. Then also there were a lot of restrictions within the city itself. So, and the number of vehicles that were plying on our roads went down. It means that conflicts between two vehicles or conflict between various road users went down, and this can contribute to this. But then if you also look at the statistics, you realize that since January there was no lockdown, but there was a reduction. In February, in February there was a reduction. So
but
although
wasn't it in January that we recorded all those, massive numbers of people dying in accidents on the roads?
Yes. Let's look at, if you look at the pedestrian knockdowns, you realize that in January it came down. Then also in February it came down. So although the lockdown effect has been very positive, we also have some little positives before that time.
So how? Okay. Do we have the reasons why we got the positives earlier before the lockdown?
As I said, we haven't done the scientific analysis yet.
Okay.
But then I just wanted to bring it out that there were some, like in February, like that the number of people who died was 171 as against 210 for the previous year.
For the previous year. Yes. Okay. So some good things happening there, but people are worried that usually when we see these figures, when the figures go low, people get complacent. In fact, they'll say the authorities, including yourself, get complacent. How is the Road Safety Authority leveraging these new figures to say, well, let's take advantage of the situation? Is there even a possibility to take advantage of it, or do we just leave it to chance?
No, we are not leaving it to chance. We were all here when we used to crave that the Road Safety then Commission, they don't have the mandate to do a lot of things, and people were saying maybe that was the cause of everything. Then now our mandate was changed, and this mandate that was changed, that was in 2019, mid-2019, the act was passed. Now we are putting up the regulation. The regulation should, we are hopeful that the regulation will be passed by Parliament by close of the year.
Okay.
Yes, and when the regulations are passed, then now we would have the modalities, the procedures, now how to manage road safety really in Ghana, using this compliance thing that we used to talk about. So, and then also apart from that, you realize that the government too is not being complacent, because they announced in the last budget, they announced that this year is the year of roads, because they realized that some of the roads were in bad shape.
Yes.
Still within this COVID era, these roads are being done. So it doesn't look like now because of COVID they are stalled.
Okay.
It's going on. So I can say that no, we are not being complacent, and I don't think the road safety actors or stakeholders are being complacent. We want to build on these gains.
How exactly?
Just like I've given you, the roads are being fixed.
Yes.
The authority itself is also coming up with its regulations very soon.
Okay.
Then also, if you look at the MTT, they are heightening their enforcement. They want to eliminate this human to human, where now when you are going, you meet a policeman and the policeman will talk to you. Now you won't meet a policeman, it will be technology. So if you are speeding, you are picked. If you, whatever happens to you, you are picked, and you don't get anybody to even talk to. You will just be summoned.
I mean, that's what is done elsewhere, but I don't think we've ever tried it in Ghana. We've been talking about it for several years.
Yes, you see, sometimes these are things that you can't start and stop. That's the first thing. And because of its nature too, when you start and you have issues and you stop, it's difficult to bring it back. So what the police want is that they want to put everything in its place before it starts. And I know that they are at an advanced stage, and very soon we are going to see the first traffic enforcement, technologically traffic enforcement on the road, and very soon we are going to issue the first ticket, and at that time we will see that enforcement is heightened. How soon is soon? As I said, it is very soon. I'm sure I can't give a timeline now, but it's very soon. It's not something that will go in the next 3 months. I don't think it will go beyond the next 3 months.
Is this something that's genuinely in the works at the authority?
Pardon?
Is this something that's in the works, something that's been worked on at the authority? And where are you if that's actually happening?
It's actually being worked within the Ghana Police Service and then the Ministry of Interior. Okay. But as you know, the authority is also a stakeholder when it comes to that. So we are also working with them. And as I said, I can say for sure that within the next 3 months, we are going to see something.
Next 3 months, you say?
Yeah.
I hear you. We're joined on Zoom by Reverend Cyril Crab. He's a road safety advocate. He's also been supporting persons who get involved in road accident. Reverend Cyril, thank you for your time. So we're seeing some reduction in the figures that we recorded the same period last year. How does that make you feel? Must be a good feeling. Okay, so we're muted. Let's fix that mute, and then we'll come back and talk to Reverend Cyril. I'd like to take for you to tell us what else the Road Safety Authority is doing. This 2020, it's an election year, and again, thankfully, people are not moving around as much as they would have in an election year because of coronavirus. But people are still moving around. Yeah. What different trends are you picking up in terms of behavior, driver behavior, in terms of how we behave on the road that you believe you could work on to reduce the carnage that we've recorded?
Okay, what the authority is working on now, we are working on a system where we want to be able to do surveillance on our roads. It means that when somebody is on the road and the person is misbehaving, we are able to see and draw caution.
So the speed cameras?
No, the speed cameras, that's for the police. We are going to do just surveillance. Okay. We are going to look at driver behavior. Apart from that, we are coming up with an app where everybody can download it on their phone, and if you're in a car and the driver is misbehaving, you could just enter whatever the driver is doing with the details in the app, and we will
with the driver's car details.
Yes, and then we will receive it at our end. So you can even tell us where you are now, what happened, what he did, where you are traveling to, and we will just send a notice to the next checkpoint so that they would apprehend him, and then it depends on the offense, caution him or do something about it. So, and then apart from that, I also said that we are coming up with the regulations to put the act in force. Are you able to tell us some of the regulations that you have? You can brood over that whilst we engage Reverend Cyril. But I'm adopting more of the wait and see, posture. To see what we do differently, because it gets overwhelming to have this conversation over and over again. The good thing, though, is that the numbers have reduced. The number of people or the number of road crashes have reduced comparing to what happened last year. Reverend Crab, you were telling me how that makes you feel as an advocate and someone who supports people who suffer from road crashes.
Yes, Ma. Thank you once again, and thank you for the opportunity to join in the discussion. I must confess that I am very much excited about the plans that the road safety have to give Ghanaians a much more safer roads to arrive alive. I have a very, very good feeling. In fact, my feeling is I'm so happy that in the month of April and month of May, we recorded very, very, very low crashes because the numbers were threatening, very, very threatening, especially in February and then early March when we had this, the 9th of March, we had this gruesome, as I call it, barbaric road crash in this country. You know, I had the opportunity to bury them last week. I officiated the mass burial, and the feeling was very bad. But then again, I have to say that it is also good that COVID-19 came and then it rather reduced the whole thing. I wish it would remain like this so that we will not record any more death. We will not record any more crashes. There wouldn't be any more bloodshed and families losing their loved ones. But going forward, I want to once again say that the road safety are taking, you know, serious measures, like he's saying over there, to promote safe practices of, you know, road safety regulations. If we would do it like that after COVID-19, and the crashes are going to be reduced and the number will remain the same, I believe that myself and my team, we would seriously have a better way to help those who are currently there, because it becomes very alarming when anytime you want to help other people with your plan, another number comes to add up. So I believe that is good, and I'm very, very happy. Just that I pray that our roads will be much more safer from this day forward, even as we are easing the lockdown, we are coming back with the kind of regulations they have to tighten, you know, up what they already have before. For me, it's okay. It's okay. And I pray that we implement it, advocate them more, and people will also enjoy, you know, riding on our road very safe, arriving alive.
Life is indeed important, but, well, we can't leave it to wishes and we can't leave it to our prayers. We only have to put in more work. So I can only assume that as you work with the Road Safety Authority, we'll be able to reach a certain level of consensus. But let me come back to you, Ms. Asman. You were telling me about, I was actually asking for you to take us through what we can find in the new regulations that you spoke about.
Mass at now is still in the draft and it's still being discussed by stakeholders.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to go deep inside. When it comes to the sensitization time, we'll bring it out and then everybody would hear about it.
No
but
problem.
For now, the experts are still looking at it. But one major function that is in is that now the commercial transport industry is going to be regulated.
Okay, you indicated that. I mean, we're getting, this one says, earlier I saw, there's a message coming in. I saw accident has reduced by 72.8% this first quarter as compared to 2009, but now I'm seeing 23.63. I want you to take us through the figures again, just so we don't get it wrong, because you yourself were raising a few concerns there. So please.
Okay, so let me just pick from January to April for last year and this year. If you look at the number of people who died in 2020, it is 738. But in 2019, it's 849.
Okay.
And this represents about, it's about 13% reduction.
13% reduction?
Yes, please.
That's for which period again, sorry?
January to...
so first quarter? Roughly first quarter?
Yes, by January to April. We pick January to April because that is what we call the COVID.
For the coronavirus. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And like you said, there's still a lot more that we need to get to know. But we use this platform to do a bit of advocacy. I'll take the first one from you, Reverend Cyril. Advocacy. What should people take away from this conversation we've just had as far as road safety is concerned?
Yeah, thank you once again. We road safety advocates, I believe that we are also taking advantage as we are being regulated by them. We say we add on to what they say. We add on to what they give us. We go out there to communicate what we receive from them. And so after COVID-19, whatever measures they are coming out with, we're going to take it. But personally, I'm also going to take it send it out there to continue to educate drivers, I mean, the users, road users, to adhere to it so that we can have, as I said, much more safer road, because that is what is our responsibility in sharing these things to our people.
Reverend Cyril Crab, thank you very much for joining us. He's a Reverend Minister. He's also an advocate for road safety, and he supports persons who get maimed, or if you like, part of road accident. Let me take the final word from you, Ms. Asmani. What I'd like for you to speak directly to drivers to look at what we've achieved, so to speak, and make it better.
Yeah, before I go to the drivers, I'd like to commend multimedia on the campaign Arrive Alive. We appreciate it very much, and yes, we have also come on board that campaign, and we are going to do everything to make it successful. So I would like to once again commend the management and everybody at multimedia for this campaign. Then for the drivers, yes, we have reduction, but as we've always said, it's been related to restriction of movements. Let us try and maintain this so that they won't think that others won't think that it is just because of the restrictions. That's why we had these figures. We are entering into, actually we are in the rainy season, not that we are entering into the rainy season.
We're in June now.
Yes, let us all take precautions when it comes to this time, because in this time, especially when it is raining, visibility is very poor. Let us make sure that all our wipers are working, our lights are in good shape, our demisters are all working, so that we wouldn't be blurred when we are driving on the road. Anytime you're on the road and then the rains are too heavy, please just find a safe place and park. Let the rain subside before you go. These are measures that we should take into consideration whilst we are on the road, especially during these times. And let's reduce our speeds.
Let's reduce our speed and make sure that when it's raining, you don't try to force your way through the rain, try and park somewhere, he says. Although that has been up for debate, the people have said that sometimes when you park, you don't know, because it might get flooded and you might get caught.
That's why I said find a safe place. A safe place means that it should be a higher ground, and it should be a straight place where you can park well. Sometimes you can even get under a shed or something if you can. Else, wait till the rain subside before you even move from the office.
All right. Thank you so much for coming through. I've been talking to Henry Asmani with the National Road Safety Authority in charge of programming, right?
I am the Senior Manager for Planning and Programs.
Okay, for programs.
Planning and Programs, yeah.
For planning and programs, yes, I do remember the programs there. And we were joined by Reverend Cyril Crab. He is a road safety advocate, and he supports people who get involved in road crashes. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Now he has turned the community wastewater treatment plant into an aquaculture facility breeding fish that is safe for consumption. This process is saving the environment whilst ensuring food security. It is a story of Tremark Aquaculture Company, a fish farming company that is using innovative ways of mitigating the impact of climate change. This is part of the JoyNews Climate Focus project, which highlights the work of entrepreneurs whose innovations help combat climate change. It's brought to you by the Ghana Climate Innovation Center. As part of our Climate Focus projects, now CalBank has presented PPEs worth 230,000 cedis to the University of Ghana Medical Center. Chief Risk Officer of CalBank, Barbara Banson, says the gesture is a joint initiative by staff and management of the bank to contribute 10% of their monthly salaries to procure PPEs for the hospital and support their work. There is more in this report.
The items presented include safety goggles, face masks, bleaching agents and face shields. The Tamale Teaching Hospital, Efiankwanta Hospital, Komfanoti Teaching Hospital and the Ghana Medical Center were also beneficiaries of the donation. Chief Risk Officer at CalBank, Barbara Banson, said the initiative was to continuously keep frontline health workers armed with the necessary resources to control the spread of the virus.
Our motive is to contribute in a small way the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. We heard the call from government for citizenry to help in procuring PPEs for our frontliners, the health service staff. So being the responsible citizens of this country, the board, the staff of Carbon came together to contribute from our salaries. We gave a range that we gave between 10% to 25% of the monthly salaries of our staff. Some contributed more than what we were asking for, which we are very grateful to our staff. And then whatever we got the board members to top it up to make it even, for us to get the 230,000 Ghana cedis to procure the PPEs for the hospitals.
Regardless of the easing of restrictions on social gatherings, Barbara Banton said the bank would continue to strictly enforce the protocols and directives outlined by government.
I'm urging everybody, every Ghanaian, everybody in this country to continue to comply with the health, the hygiene protocols that have been put in place. For Carbank, we have our own, should I say, COVID response team, where we've put in most of these protocols. We have people in the strategic places in the organization, the branch, the head office, to ensure that every staff, before you come into the building, your temperature is checked, you have the facial masks on, and then the social distancing. Because of that, we have to get people to stay at home and work from home. And then when it comes to the customer's side of it, before a customer comes into our branch or even our head office, they need to wash their hands first, and then we apply the hand sanitizer. We check the temperature before we are allowed to do business with you.
CEO of the University of Ghana Medical Center, Dr. Darius Osei, said the facility has so far had over 100 cases, with an impressive recovery rate of over 90%. He, however, expressed concerns over people's reluctance to visit the hospital out of fear of contracting the virus.
We want to thank all members of staff and of Carbank for this great gesture, because these are all disposables, and it means once you use them, you need to dispose of the items. Presently, today we have 23 patients in the normal ward and then 4 in the ICU. But this is a continuous process. As patients come in, we treat them, they are tested negative, and then within 24 hours another negative. They move out and then others come on board. So every day you are having a turnover of some numbers. But the recovery, I can say, is over 95% so far. COVID is one condition of health menace, but we also have hypertensives, we have diabetes and others. I think we must brace ourselves and then prepare ourselves towards meeting all these needs, including COVID patients. We are asking the general public that now we are open. There are a lot of services that's available. I mean, anybody who wants to use the facility must not be scared that we've been designated for COVID, because we have played safe since we were nominated to take care for COVID patients.
Agape Queen's report for JoyNews.
Let's go to the United States. It was another night of fire and fury as protests raged across much of that country for a 6th night. At least 40 cities imposed curfews, but most were broken, and National Guard members have been activated in at least 26 states and Washington, D.C. There were also reports of looting by the protesters and police brutality against civilians in the country where rule of law and civil liberties are deemed to be highly respected. And all that is in demand for justice for this man, an African-American, George Floyd, who died whilst in the custody of a white police officer. In a viral video, the white officer is seen with his knee on George Floyd's neck, with the black man continuously saying he couldn't breathe. All those were ignored by the officer, whose action was being watched by his 2 other colleagues, who also prevented bystanders from intervening.
I'm very close to the Diaspora African Forum, the frontage. I'm here.
the organizers call it a funeral for George Floyd. You know, George Floyd was murdered by a white police officer in Minneapolis sometime last week. Well, what is happening here? People, African Americans are gathered here, people from all races are gathered here to solidarize with American people who have been protesting on the streets, demanding justice and calling for equality. We've been hearing speaker after speaker here, but we want to interact with some of the people who are gathered here to find out from them what they make of the situation here. Well, you can see the cap I'm wearing. I can't breathe. It represents it is the last words of George Floyd. In fact, we know that Eric Garner, who was also held in chokehold by police officers, also muttered these words, "I can't breathe," before he died.
I think it's about time. I'm complete solidarity with African American people. We're a diaspora. All black people are affected by this, and it's about time that we dismantle the system, we dismantle the structure of white supremacy, and dismantle everything, break everything, and rebuild and stop killing black people all around the world. And this is not only in the U.S., this is also happening in Ghana. So we need to dismantle everything, restructure the police system, have them really protect and serve us, demilitarize them, stop giving them all these things to kill us. So I'm in complete solidarity with the system. Yeah.
Ernesto, what is it Commander-in-Chief? Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Fighters League. Yesterday you had a press conference and you're calling on African leaders to rise up to the occasion and also speak against racism. You think by their silence they are complicit in all of this?
They are absolutely complicit, and they tell us by their actions exactly where they stand on this global issue of racism. And that is why we are up in arms in condemning their silence and in condemning their sycophancy. If the Queen was sick, you would hear Ekufuado, wishing the Queen a speedy recovery. And we can't understand why our president cannot be heard in same voice, solidarizing with people who have been murdered and gruesomely killed in the streets of America.
What should we be demanding? Justice, prosecutions? What should we be demanding?
I think that they go hand in hand, and prosecution will definitely serve the justice that we are looking for, even though it cannot restore or bring back to life those who have unfortunately lost it.
I'm from down south. I'm from a place called Wilson, North Carolina, and the way I was brought up by my parents was to be submissive and subservient to all white people, and somehow I went to the military and I went to school and I got an education and I got out of the Jim Crow era, but there are a lot of the Jim Crow things, but there are a lot of my brothers and sisters who are still there, who are still in the Jim Crow.
Let's head to the United States of America. Pakwesi Asare is in Alabama. He's joining me for more. Hello, Pakwesi. Pakwesi, do you hear me? Okay, so Pakwesi there, we'll try and reach out to him so that he can hear us. But I also have here in Ghana, Jessica Uboma. She's president of the Gais Daycare Centers Association and convener of a movement dubbed Moms Against Police Brutality, I Can't Breathe. Jessica, thanks for your time. Tell us a bit more about your campaign.
Okay, I want to say good afternoon to our cherished viewers and to our friends and family all over the world. Thank you for this opportunity. Myself and a few friends have sat back and wondered why nobody in Africa is adding their voice to this cause. So, as George Floyd kept crying for help, he's crying for his mom, who died 2 years ago. And that broke my heart, for a grown man of 40-something to cry for mom. So we have dubbed our movement to be Moms Against Police Brutality, which is called MOPOB. So we want to stage a peaceful protest. Maybe 50 people, 50 women. We have some male supporters as well. And we want to highlight the issues of police brutality. I have lived in the States before. I have lived in the UK. I went to high school in the States. I have family in the States. I have family in the UK. I have brothers and sisters in Europe. I have nieces, nephews. I'm planning to maybe one day educate my children in the US. And at the time that I was in the US in the 80s, in the 80s, there wasn't this kind of racism going on. There was, but to an extent, it has become worse. And so we in Ghana, we can't sit back and think that it doesn't concern us. We have large families in the diaspora. And so we have to add our voice as Africans, even for our Black Americans or African American brothers and sisters in the US, in the UK, Europe, and all sorts of places. Apart from that, in Ghana, we have seen countless and countless events or cases of police brutality. Recently, you remember the one at the Midland Bank about the woman who was beaten to a pulp. And then in Kumasi, a lady called Efia at Sopholine police station was subjected to the atrocious brutality that you'd ever think of. And in the end, what did the police say? They said that she attempted suicide or she was trying to kill herself. But the doctors investigated and realized that this brutality was purely from the police. So what am I saying? I want all the moms who love their children, mom who loves the children of the world. I'm a teacher. And recently, as we were doing distance education, distance learning, I had to treat a topic on a subject area called Our World, Our People. Right. And so we are looking at important places in our community. Okay. So the police station was part of it.
Okay, I need to step in here because I'm running out of time, but I get the point you're trying to make, that you're putting together mothers who can stand up against some of these brutalities, not just for what is happening in the United States, but what we have seen as some sort of replication happening here in Ghana. Just hang on for me briefly. Now, Pakwesi Asare is joining us from Alabama. Pakwesi, what's the situation there?
Thank you, Gifty. It's not any different from what's happening in other parts of the United States of America. And as you rightly stated, this is Alabama, and it has quite a unique history and peculiarity when it comes to demonstrations here in the United States. Alabama has been home to most of the key events leading up to the civil rights movement of 1963, which eventually culminated in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. As you may be aware, there were lots of demonstrations, against the poor treatment of Black people. And Martin Luther King, who famously delivered the I Have a Dream speech once upon a time, had referred to Alabama as the most segregated city in the United States. It tells you that, the sort of racism that occurred in Alabama was that deep. And so lots of demonstrations took place during that period. So this is a history, the little background to Alabama. And they have also followed up with lots of demonstrations in cities like Mobile, Birmingham. A lot of these nonviolent demonstrations and protests have eventually led to violence. Many media people have been attacked. They've been back and forth. A lot of things have happened, all showing solidarity, to what happened on Monday.
Let me bring in Jifa Ahiaji, who is also joining us from the United States of America. She's an international health. I beg your pardon. I know, right? Joining us from the United States. Jifa, thank you very much. And you really need to forgive me for that. But what do you see? We're looking at a pandemic. And in the midst of the pandemic, all of a sudden, there is this wild protest going on. Protests that I think the United States hasn't seen in several decades, I guess. What's your assessment?
Well, let's just say a movement is starting. A giant dragon or serpent is awakening. You rightly said we are in the middle of a pandemic. Let me add that there has been a pandemic already going on for more than 100 years, which is called racism, slavery, discrimination against black people, people of darker skin, not only in Africa, not only in the United States or the Americas. It could be in Europe, it's in Asia, it's in Australia. And this must stop. And this George Floyd being murdered by a white privileged man, it was just the spark to something that has been there waiting to happen. And we are hoping that it's like a choboy. When choboy happens, what happens? Everybody rises up. And as you rightly said, we need what? Africans, black Africa, to rise up and tune up with Africa or black Africa in the diaspora. So let's begin the conversation and let's go on.
So unfortunately, we have very limited time right now, but I want you to address for me how this movement can survive in this pandemic and the problem that it brings, the extent of infection that you can imagine people will be spreading if, assuming just one person has it.
Well, it's life over there. Would you rather die from poverty, from police brutality, or fighting for your life, or wait for a disease to come and kill you? And talking about that pandemic, one of the lessons I've come to learn is to appreciate more our ancestors and our herbalists when they talk about the mucous membrane, the phlegms. You remember what our herbalists said? If you can treat your phlegm, you can treat almost every disease. Your phlegm, your mucous membrane is just like your drainage system. If your drainage system is clogged, what happens? Diseases happen. Isn't that what happens? So yes, through pandemics, we can look at all those, do the maybe physical distances and look after ourselves, but we cannot continue to ignore the fact that we black people, we the people who gave birth to life, we are being discriminated upon out of fear. Let me quote this famous white educator, Jane Elliott. She said, if you are a white person born in the United States of America and you are not racist, then it's a miracle. This is a white woman saying this.
I see. We can have this conversation another time, but I need to get to your wrapping up comment so that we can call it a wrap for today. I'll start with you, Jessica. Jessica, briefly, what do you want people to do? You have started a movement. What do you want people to do, briefly, so we can wrap up on that?
Okay. What do I want people to do? I've sent messages to some people on WhatsApp, on Facebook, and now this. I've got a number. We want to do social distancing with our march. So we want to march to 2 places and deliver some speeches with our placards. We want to wear red. In Ghana, when we wear red, it means we are mourning. We want to be in solidarity with our people in the U.S.
Okay.
And then we want to say that mothers come together, 50 of us, we walk down, make our speech, no violence, very easy atmosphere. We just want to make our mark. And for the government to actually pay attention to police training.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Jessica, for joining in. Jessica Ugbuma there, she has put together, she's a convener of Moms Against Police Brutality. Pakwesi, briefly for me, I mean, you understand the constraints that I have with time. You are a media person. So briefly, wrap it up for me on how you must be feeling as a person of color or of a black person in this community at this time.
It's not a very good feeling, Gifty, if you ask me. Discrimination is real, racism is real, and particularly for where I find myself. I mean, anybody you ask about the Deep South, one of the first things that they tell you about is the racism and discrimination that occurs. I've had my fair share of discrimination just a couple of weeks ago, where I had an encounter with a white man who said, hey, go back to your country. Leave my country and go back to your country. I mean, I had to call in the police because he had also threatened my life, and the police had come in and all that. Subsequently, I had to move out of the place and all that. So it is not an exciting thing. And just like the previous speakers have said, we need to be up and speaking. It is not in anybody's interest to be quiet at this moment. We all need to come up, and rise and speak against discrimination. The governor of Alabama, Kay Ivey, had earlier issued a statement reminding people
Thank you very much, Pakwesi, for joining in the discussion. Pakwesi Osari is a journalist living in Alabama at the moment. And I was also joined by Jifa Ahiaji, who is an international health expert. And that's all time will allow us. Log on to myjoyonline.com. There's more news there. My name is Gifty and Apia. Let's go.